Hi, everyone. Today is Wednesday, February 23rd of 2022. And I'm here with Rudy for, of course, Rudy's Psychic Meetup. So what is on the agenda today, Rudy?
Hey Sam, we're going to look at some strange animal deaths. I don't know if you saw that video of some birds dying in Mexico and some beached whales, but before we get into that, Sam, let's talk about Ukraine real quick. I see some chats going back and forth. I know the war drums are beating profusely here in the United States, and you said before I think you didn't see Russia invading Ukraine. What do you think's going on there? Do you think Vladimir Putin has some sort of secret plan, or is this just typical brinksmanships with international politics?
I do strongly believe that the failing Western governments want to detract from their extreme failures. This is what I was feeling about it. And I apologize ahead of time. I've fed my dogs and they should be fat and happy. But if you hear the occasional growling, there are a lot of dogs in this complex who come alive during this is dinner hour. So I'll apologize to people ahead of time. But yeah, just about that. I don't want people to get too freaked out about this. Is something that wouldn't even have made our North American news cycle the some sort of part of it. Would be like British Columbia. Well, what would make part of our North American news cycle would be if BC and Alberta seceded from Canada and joined the United States. Yeah. And everybody, the majority of the people enough to ratify things and stuff. And, Canada knew about it and they succeeded together. It's not even a problem with international borders, right? Where it's not like smack dab in the middle of Canada or something like that. Or cutting off, if Quebec succeeded to the US, It would cut off the Atlantic provinces of Canada. So that would create an issue. But it would be like Canada getting so pissed off about that they're going to attack the United States. When BC and Alberta said, we're unhappy with these clowns in Ottawa, and we're like going to say, see you, and we have all this gas and more water frontage. And, they brought like their prettiest girls to, be like, Vancouver, it could be yours. So anyways, that's basically a comparison with what's going on with Russia and those parts of the Ukraine where they wanted to separate. It's been going on for years and years. And isn't it strange that a couple of years ago, I said one of the people who was involved with the Great Awakening was the president of the Ukraine.
That's right.
Remember that? Yeah. And what it meant in particular is like they're not involved in the Great Awakening like I'm involved with the Great Awakening where I'm aware of it, but they play a key role in the Great Awakening, and that he was on the list. There was a whole bunch of them. Nigel Farage, remember? Jordan Peterson, Elon Musk, Julian Assange.
Was it Zelensky? Is that his name?
Yes, Zelensky.
Okay.
The comedian who did the TV show about, and then he ran about. And then he won because they were really just sick of it. I mean, the Ukraine has so much to offer, right? But they're also very, they're key strategically for Russia in the same way that Canada is very strategic for the Americans to have such a good relationship with. You don't have to take over a country. You just have to be on really good terms. And, our cultures have sort of interwoven themselves enough that I think about 10% of Americans, if they're not Canadians, one of their parents are Canadians. Yeah. So, it's very much like that. So they're beating the drum, they're making you worried, but it's really the same thing. Look over here. Don't look here. Look over here. That's all I can say about that. Sorry, guys. And I'm sorry if you're full of anxiety and you're like, but she said there wasn't going to be an invasion. Well, there wasn't. He was sending peacekeeping forces because these guys succeeded. And that's not the same as, one country attacking another. People are like, hey, come on over. We're joining you. And I mean, what does the country do?
Yeah, it's, Vladimir Putin has been the boogeyman for 8-10 years. It's kind of ridiculous.
Well, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it because it's keeping people away from, what can truly make their life better if they recognize it. And that's a shame.
Yeah. So, Sam, let's jump into the topics tonight. These strange deaths with animals. I'm going to share this video for those of you listening on the podcast. This is one where there was recently a flock of yellow yellow-headed blackbirds, and they appear to basically fall out of the sky in Mexico. And you just see them go whoosh. It's almost like they were poured out of a bucket, and it was caught on a security camera in Chihuahua. I can't even say the name, in the province of Chihuahua, Mexico. And it's pretty much directly south of New Mexico in the United States, a few hundred miles south of there. But Sam, when I watch this video, I'm just going to replay it again. I mean, it's amazing. I see it's almost like they just dumped something out of there. What do you think is happening here? I know there's a couple theories out there, but what do you people on the other side show you is actually happening?
Okay, so I'm going to do my best to describe the information that I saw while you were talking about that. That's kind of how it works. You start talking about it and creating the information or grabbing it out of the ethos so that I can read it, because there's a lot of stuff out there that happens all the time. And I just wanted to explain to people how I was able to pinpoint a lot of things, why I'm so right about stuff that, I mean, I don't know. I should know anything about this. I have no clue from my human brain side, but I'll tell you what the people showed me. All right. So that flock of birds, they were traveling together, like as a group, right? And what happened is they entered a collision of weather systems and also the flapping of their wings, and such a large group of them created something that caused them to be like smashed down. That's what they were showing me. A weather system came together. It's one of those sort of 1 in a million things that happen. And I don't even know if that kind of stuff can happen, but that is the picture that I saw. So let's just see.
That's what I was thinking when I saw it. I was thinking microbursts. You'll hear about these around airports and airplanes where you get a sudden downpour when these weather fronts collide. So that's exactly what it looked like to me, Sam. It was just like something pushed it down. There were some other theories that maybe they all dove because there was a falcon or some other predatory bird swooping on them. But
no,
like that just doesn't make sense. It just looks like they were forced down some way.
Yeah, pushed.
Wind shear. There you go, Waya. Wind shear or microburst. I've had a microburst hit here in Arizona outside our old house, and it knocked a tree down. It was just this big, almost like a mini tornado. It just, I mean, they're powerful. So
and they're all traveling in a flock together, right? So they had even less of a defense against that. When it came down, it was almost like it was worse than if they had just been traveling through by themselves, because maybe it could have passed around. But there was nowhere for the energy to go, and that's what made it worse, that they were all traveling in a flock, and where it pushed them together and down. That's why they came out in such a small space as compared to when they were flying. So there's other reports out there, and you hear them in the news periodically about large amounts of birds being seen dead, typically blackbirds, but other birds as well. There was one in New Mexico, like August of 2020, and the residents and some of the biologists reported the birds acting strangely before they died. Like they're normally seen in shrubs and trees, but they're on the ground looking for food. A lot of them were lethargic and unresponsive and getting hit by cars. And Tennessee has, I think there was reports back in 2015 of a couple hundred birds down, and the officials that went there to survey even noted they were like, the birds were split open. And the witness told police that he was delivering pizzas, and it's like his car just got dumped on with birds. So that example in Mexico was a specific weather instance. Are there other things that people on their side can show you that causes some of these mass die-offs? Is it typically weather? I'll give you some other theories that are out there, like a sudden rainstorm or cold front, kind of weather-related, like we talked about. A disease doesn't seem to make sense of birds falling out of the sky at one time. But fleeing, predatory bursts, pesticides, things like that. Is there anything that you see common in a lot of these bird deaths? The poison. So they travel as a group. They consume the same type of food.
Yeah.
Right. And if they happen to run across something that is poisoned by various means, I mean, it could be, there could be some old lead paint.
Okay.
That was leaking close by and infested the food, and it, they ingested it as a group, and then they would have had the reaction the same. So that was the other one that when you were telling me the story about the birds, I got the difference with the weather, but they also mentioned that pollution, like the poison that we're leaving around the planet not properly checked is affecting groups of animals. And the one you were talking about, how the birds had all these, like they'd be on the ground like looking for food and stuff like that, but not, and they normally wouldn't do that because then they're not paying attention to predators like cats or whoever's around. And it's almost like a dementia that falls on them, but it's because of the mass poisoning that was happening to those birds in that area. They all, and if you could figure out what it was that they all consumed, but better yet, why don't you just take a look around the neighborhood and see, you know, what's polluting and that birds are easily getting access to because maybe it's going into some of the things that they are ingesting.
Okay. Yeah, you know, a lot of microwaves, people want to think like, well, it's microwaves, radiation, or 5G. You always hear stories about that, but it seems the most logical is foods because they do kind of flock together and go to the same places and eat the same stuff. So, okay. Well, thanks for that, Sam. The next one I want to look at is some of these beached whales. I can share a picture out to, I don't know if, let's see. I have several tabs open with some of these things. But essentially, you know, around the world, you hear about whales being beached. And it's typically these pilot whales, which are actually a type of cetacean, like type of dolphin. But recently, I think this was, I forget the date, but there was a pod of these pilot whales stranded off the Australian island of Tasmania. There was about 470 whales, or you know, in a pod. And half of them actually were died. But the question is, you know, why do they beach themselves? You see this around the world. There's also a place up in like Cape Cod. There's some hot spots. But there's a couple theories. One is that, you know, their sonar doesn't work when you have these low, kind of slow sloping beaches. So they tend to get themselves into trouble. And because they're a social animal, or, you know, travel in groups like the birds, they like one or a couple of them will go in and they all follow, and then they can get stuck. But then there's also theories of, you know, sonar from military vessels, magnetic changes. Sam, with some of these whale beachings, what can you see as some of the causes? What can the people on the other side tell us about that?
Well, when you brought it up earlier, when you were speaking, it was really kind of cool because I did see pictures. It's almost like a little cartoon. Right. The same with the other situation. Yeah. And I just wanted to wait for the appropriate time, you know, to bring it up. And what happens is because of the system of governance that the whales have set up, where they have one lead whale. So if that whale is sick or diseased or is demented, or, you know, when they get, like sometimes things can happen where their sonar is off because they all have this sonar, right? And there's usually a lead whale for the entire group. Yeah. And so what happens, so when you think about it, it's kind of like how there's, you know, plane crashes, you know, so if you took all the small planes, helicopters, you know, we hear about the commercial jets a lot, but there's a lot of small planes that crash all the time. But when you think about it, since that's how whales travel in these pods, small pods too, small pods, medium-sized pods, large pods, just like you got New York City and you got, you know, Upper Back, Accomack, middle of nowhere, right? Population 600, you know, and that's the pod of 20 whales, and there's the one with the 450. But when the leader gets into trouble, there's no way to know until you have something like this happen, you know.
And then it's too hard for them to get out, or and the interesting thing is you know, a lot of them tend, like, even if they rescue them, some of them will re-beach themselves. And are they that sensitive, you think, to the Earth's magnetic poles that like that causes them to do that? Or is it really just that they are such a tight knit group of animals that they go wherever that leader is, regardless of the consequences?
And that's it. Okay. Just whatever the leaders, that's their downfall, is their governance. We could say that about some of our societies. We should be doing really, really good, but instead we're not. It's because of the governance.
They aren't that different than humans. That's amazing.
No,
So.
absolutely. That's what I'm like. Why is this such a surprise? I mean,
Yeah.
we do it in society all the time. There's a lot of societies that have failed. I watched the society that my mother grew up in become, a lifeless town, and now everybody just lives off of a check. So, you see that happen in societies. Why should Wales be any different?
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Sam. That was awesome because we had never actually touched on those topics before, and I actually hadn't seen any of those really in the chats of the Discord before. So that was learned some new stuff there. So with that, we have 16 questions. Let's go ahead and jump into it. The first one comes from Solar Dragon. Hi, Sam and Rudy. Could you speak about the relationships, friendship, and romantic ones? Since it's an important part of our lives, what are some ways we could know if we're in the right one for us? Thank you. Much love.
Well, a really easy way that you can tell if somebody's in love with you or not is that they're willing to sacrifice and make changes, to either be around you, spend time with you. That's usually the first thing on the checklist. And, I think that people should definitely have a discussion about their spirituality or what they think about what happens to you when you die, those sort of things, because the worst thing is to, get together with and marry somebody who would make fun of you, who, like before I married my husband, he used to catch me talking to the people on the other side, and he would come in the room and I would stop talking to them. And then one time he said, "It's okay. You can talk to them." Right. So I knew it was all right. He didn't think I was crazy, and he had sort of seen what was going on, right? Like that I would talk about stuff and then it would come true, and, the news would be on, and then I would tell him what was really going on. And then the answer would be on the news sometimes just 2 or 3 days later.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think even with, my wife and I, we, have similar views on things, and it's been interesting to kind of grow and evolve together with this journey. I couldn't imagine other people that, I've dated being or understanding that I have a psychic meetup every 2 weeks. It's kind of a weird one to throw on people. So
yeah.
All right. Well, that's a good one. Thanks, Sam. Our next question comes from Raymond. Hello, Sam and Rudy. There are many stories of people adopting personal habits and interests from organ donors. Does this occur with people that receive blood from others? Does it happen as a result of the vibrations from the organs? Is it from the DNA, or is there something else that we don't know about it? Thanks.
Well, that's a really tough one, Raymond. And I'm not usually the I don't know lady. I'm usually, able to pull that information out because Rudy's so great at reading those questions. But I don't have a straight up answer for that, except to say the picture I got when Rudy was reading it was that the person who the organs belong to were interested in and very close to the person who received the organ. So the person who received the organ, if they had some semblance of ability similar to mine, which I believe a lot of the Sam Jammers have as well. People are like, "Oh, I'm not like you, Sam." Well, some of you are, but others are. Like I said, we're all different. People have intuition and psychic ability at different levels, different understandings, just like when you're learning a language, right? Sometimes you're really good at speaking French, and other times you're just new at it and you struggle a little bit. Well, it's the same with your abilities and your knowing. So think about it. If one of these people who was like, let's say a Sam Jammer, so you're interested in psychic things, you believe in it, you kind of had stuff happen yourself, a lot of people fit that. They're like, yeah, this is real and I want to know more about it. And I'm intimately interested in it, and it's usually because you've got something going on yourself. And of course your spirit is like reaching out and going, I need to learn, I need to be around this stuff. And your body will receive that message and, make sure that you're there. And it's the same with when you receive these organs, that could be one of the probably easiest reads you could ever have. Like, I do really well at readings. I struggle more with cryptos, with the timing. Like I struggle more. I just see which ones are. In fact, it was so cool to watch someone on YouTube talk about Bitcoin, and he agreed as well. He didn't see it going to 100,000 this year. Like some of those silly, oh, it's going to be $1 million. No. Anyways, not right now. Probably not ever. But he was very bullish on ADA and Polkadot.
Oh, actually. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So I had a big smile on about that. I was like, oh my God, those are like two of the ones that pretty much all of us hold. But like I said, you know, I don't know how we ended up talking about cryptos. I guess
we always do.
But yeah, that's my answer on the DNA one. With that's the best I can do with that. Is what I saw is that the person who, because not everybody who receives organs reports this happening to them.
Yeah, and we covered this. It's been a year or two ago. I can't remember anymore, but I'd have to check my notes. But you know, I think we talked, and I don't remember what the answer was, but we talked about like some people think it's cellular memory. You know, where someone who gets a heart transplant is now craving meat or the same food that someone else, you know, the person who had used to own that heart or that the heart came from used to crave. So a lot of weird, but I don't know, Raymond. Well, I'll search the archives and see if I can remember.
And I do believe in the cellular memory thing as well. But when you're talking about some of the stuff, like knowing about what happened to the person in their past and knowing who the mom was and knowing who the sister was before they introduced themselves, these are the sort of things that usually are making the news when it comes to this. It's like medium stuff, right? And I'm like, well, you know, if you put your organ was put in me, I would probably be able to get like a whole bunch more stuff. And
yeah, it's interesting. I even noticed that when we were in Mexico, just being around people, I felt like I was more receptive. I was picking up stuff more, I think. So I think being around these future Sam Jam meetups are going to be interesting when we're all together in one place. Our next question comes from Peter Wang. Is there any truth that the Khazarian mafia is behind the chaos we live in now? Is the Khazarian mafia even real? And Ray, this one I hadn't heard of before. And Sam, I looked this up real quick. The Khazarian mafia is a worldwide organized crime syndicate that has deeply infiltrated and hijacked the political institutions of the United States of America, gained control over the Congress, yada, yada, yada. Basically, they've pushed the U.S. to fight wars for Israel. So it's basically, it sounds like it's kind of a conspiracy of the, you know, a group of people that are trying, you know, have a certain agenda. Do you think this is any truth to this?
No.
Okay. And yeah, it's one of those things where they've deleted all their records across the history books. So, you know, there's no proof to back up any of that. So, but interesting.
And I think that as long as people, you know, just always go with this number one rule, and it's like, if there's no proof at all, you know, don't believe it. It's the same with, you know, with me being a medium. I would just tell anybody in my family who's like, oh, I don't believe it. And I'd be like, look, I'm way past the point of having to prove it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm just past that point. So yeah, it's along the same lines where this stuff here is, you know, this stuff here is just completely made up. And there's no proof. So if there's no proof of something, that matches with my knowings as well. I get that from knowings, but you know, you guys are not defenseless from this kind of stuff either, where there is no proof. And always err on the side of people. Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, your knowings came in handy the other week. So when we ended the last psychic meetup, remember we had to rush back so I could get my blood test before the COVID test before we flew home. And you were pretty sure, like, I'm pretty sure you'll be fine. And we rushed back. I was like, hey, you know, honey, do I have time to stop at the store on the way there? She said, no, the doctor's here now. You got to come. So we rushed back. Turns out the doctor forgot something. And I didn't do my test until right around noon, which is when Sam thought it was. So it is kind of funny just to see those little things that happen all the time. It's like, yep, you just kind of prove it over and over again, right?
Yeah, I was looking at the time, and I think you actually went in to get tested maybe at 9 minutes to 12.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not usually exact on stuff. with my predictions either. You know, I'll be off, but they usually, I find, rounded off. You know, I've tried to be exact when I was like, oh, Bitcoin, it's not going to go any lower than 38,000. And I think it went down to what, 32?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam. The next question comes from Olia. Hi, Sam and Rudy. What is the destiny of Agenda 2030 planned and documented by the World Economic Forum? And I don't know what that Agenda 2030 is offhand. Have you heard of that, Sam?
I haven't, but the impression I get is that like there's a lot of value when people try to put together economic forums because, you know, they're just trying to be helpful and, you know, get countries ready for opportunities that might come up. Like, it's not a bad thing, right? It's just that it's usually very inaccurate, you know, and I think that you should defer more to people like Peter Zehan and people who have, you know, sort of I don't agree with everything he says, but he doesn't have like the advantage that I have, but he's pretty darn close. He was the one who somebody sent me links. They were like, a lot of the stuff that you're saying like runs along the lines of what this guy is saying. And I'm like, oh, I've never heard of him before. You know, so there are people out there who just hyper focus on one area. And again, you know, you can glean a lot of information from them. So I would listen to him before I would listen to the WEF.
Okay. Yeah, it's something about sustainable development, provides a shared blueprint for peace, prosperity, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the no talents are getting paid, you know.
Yeah.
Got to get paid. That's how are you going to do it? Yeah.
I was listening to NPR today, them blathering on. It's like about Ukraine and Russia, and I'm just like, oh my God, these are just these academics that sit there and spout off like they know exactly what they're talking about. It just drives me nuts. Anyway, next question, Bradley J. Many Catholic cathedrals were decorated with gargoyles. Used as a water spout, they were carved representing a monstrous creature. Why do these beautiful buildings embody such hideous forms in their architecture? It is said they are to warn off evil spirits. Is there another reason behind their design in the corporation?
Well, I can't see how making grotesque things, you know, I can't see how that would be helpful. I don't really think that there's anything to it other than, you know, it was what was in style and it caught on, you know, because I mean, that happens here with us too, right? Oh, it's in style and it caught on. There you go.
Yeah, that's what you wonder. You know, Art Deco, we go through these phases. And it's just, you know, think about back then how difficult it was to carve something so intricate in stone like that as well. And, you know, it gives people something to look at when they come to these large cathedrals. I think that also drew people to there, right?
And well, how is this any different than all of these cartoon animals that people or characters that people like to do on the NFT? Is like the what was it, CryptoPunks, and then there's the Bored Ape, and then there's the Bored Ape Yacht Club, something, I don't know. You know, there's all these different, and now there's like some sort of cats, ones with lions. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, so how is this any different than somebody? I mean, that gargoyle that you had a picture of, it was very different than, I mean, if you look at them, everybody kind of had their own style. So then it became about whenever they would do these buildings, they'd be like, oh, who made the gargoyles on the place in, you know, London proper there that I walked by the other day by the newsstand? I'm going to ask the owner who made his gargoyles because I want those for my place.
Oh, okay. Like a status symbol. Yeah, I'm just, for those of you listening on the podcast, I'm just clicking through pictures of gargoyles on the internet. But yeah, there's some interesting stuff. An eagle eating somebody's face or something. Oh, God.
Well, you know, so it doesn't ward off evil spirits. It was, again, society hundreds of years ago was really not that different than the way things are today. And when you think about it, I could easily pull out the example of, you know, the different NFTs that artists are doing, and it catches on and people start to copy it, but in a different style. And that's what happened with these gargoyles. And people didn't have NFTs and digital stuff back then. They just had, you know, hardcore statues and whatever
Didn't
they
have
could
TV and
build with
radio,
their
right?
hands. No, exactly. It was very rudimentary, but they still had the need to, like, you know, the carpenters who were able to do this were gifted as well as functional. So,
Yeah. I remember reading was it Ken Follett, Pillars of the Earth, and that, you know, it's the story is centered around this cathedral in this town, and that's one of the things it talks about is, you know, these cathedrals were really there to draw people from all over the place with their architecture and the beauty, and that's just another feature that brought them in. Next, we have Sean has 3 questions. Sean, I love your enthusiasm, but you only get one. But your first one is the most interesting, and we're going to go ahead and look at that one. Hi, Sam and Rudy, my 2 faves. Don't tell Moo. Hey, tell Moo to get a plane ticket and have a live meetup with Sam. Rudy's done 2 already, right? Love him, but this is always brilliant. Can you look into the island of High Brasil in the Atlantic? It appears on old maps. Did it exist? It was supposed to appear every 7 years. Is this an island in the in-between spaces that shows itself? I'd love to blab and see what you get. And Sam, I did pull this up before the show. I'll share a tab with you on.
because they already told me it exists, but only like sometimes the tides overtake it when you're passing through.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. So it's west of Ireland, and this is one of these old timey maps. And it would be shrouded in fog. And then there's all this folklore about it. Like somebody went aside, somebody went, there's a legend. Somebody met an old man there and he gave him some gold. And all these stories, right? These sailors' tales evolve, but that's interesting. So it's just a low-lying piece of land. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes they don't, you know, and think about it this way. You have erosion as well. I mean, there's pieces of land that have been thrown up, like our beach, where I have my beach house. I moved in there it was 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, 2010 I moved in, or 2009. So I've been in there quite a while. So during that time, there's been a whole new beach created. So the people who were to my right, they just had homes there. Now they have a beachfront. They just had before, like it was just this drop off and then a bunch of rocks and then the ocean. Now they have a whole bunch of sand, you know. So I'm just talking about the general, very natural changes. I mean, I've only been there, like I said, since 2009. And this showed up maybe about 10 years later, but it was after a storm. And then a whole bunch of sand got deposited. Okay. And now we don't have to stop walking on the beach at one point. We can just keep going like another 100 meters. There's more beach now. And and that's what the people on the other side were showing me in a picture. Okay. They were kind of like, it's the exact same thing.
Okay. Yeah, if I'm on Google Maps and just as the northwest of Ireland, there's kind of another landmass that doesn't have anything sticking above the ocean. And you think about it now, we have radar, we have I can go onto Google Maps and see this view of the Earth. So it's probably less, it doesn't really show itself anymore, or people are aware that there's just to avoid it, right?
Right. Oh, well, exactly. It's just like people who've lost land on the other side of where I used to live before moving to Mexico. Those people are losing their property through erosion. So people's cottages are actually having to be moved back.
Yeah.
Right. So that can happen as well. So why not? I mean, this is a very natural thing. And also, if you have land that is at a certain height during tides and different water, sea levels, different things that are happening, erosion as well of this land that maybe gets washed over quite a bit when there's big storms. Okay. And that whittles it down. And then eventually it's not appropriate to try to have a house there or anything, or even have whereas maybe 100 or 200 years before, it was a nice little flat piece of land where maybe they had a little store there, they had a wharf, they had services, they had supplies brought in because it was far enough away from the land, the major landmass everybody was going to. And you have to think about it like if you have this highway, everything traveled by boat, right? And they were just like, we ran out of oranges like a week ago. Oh, we happen to have some here, right, on this little island. Well, 200 years later, that's gone.
Okay. All right. All right. Our next question, we're going to skip Sean's other two and go down to Elon. Hi, we got to see Elon a couple weeks ago as well. Hi, Sam and Rudy. Do you have any insights on the Hopi predictions of the American Indians? Thank you. And I looked at this, Elon. This is on. We're going to have a special topic on this because it deals with like the blue Kachina and the fifth Earth revealing itself. And it's interesting. Some of these Hopi, I want to do some more research on it and make sure I'm seeing the right things. But Sam, as I talk about this, did the people on the other side show you anything about these Hopi predictions about kind of a fifth world revealing itself? Is it a planet behind the sun or any of this kind of stuff?
Well, I agree with you when you say we should have our own topic on it. And this is probably one I might have to do a little bit of homework. So I find it really helps me if I watch some videos on it and then I can start seeing what I can get, because I'm just like when you're talking, if I'm listening to a video and somebody's talking, I'm seeing if I can pull out. I don't have to be in person with, and they don't have to be talking to me. I just have to hear it. And then I can start seeing if I can pull information out of the ethos. That's the only way that I know so much what's going on in people's heads, or I'm able to say, yeah, no, that's, and it's completely opposite what everybody else is saying. I mean, how many times have we seen that happen? And I just wanted to explain to people, that's how I do it. So if you have abilities that you think are similar to mine, just try that and see, test yourself and see what the results are. But yeah, this one here, we're going to have to do a whole other program on that. So thanks, Elon. Sorry, I'm no good on this one right now. So I'm the no lady, but hey, let's make it a special topic. I'll do my homework and then we can really dive into it. And I'm sure a lot of people who actually, there might be people who are Hopi Indian who have heritage.
Yeah. Next question comes from Cal. Hi, Sam and Rudy. When we rejoin Source, we regain the abilities we lost when we entered our human bodies. What happens with the no talents? Do they suddenly become talented? Do we get a bunch of IQ points along with telepathic abilities, second sight, etc.? Thank you.
Well, first of all, we're all the same on the other side. So, you're not left lacking just because you happen to not get any points to advance you from your behavior on this side of things, right? Because it's all about learning and growing. And, but you've got to, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. So even somebody who was really young and doing a lot of bad things and stuff and things that they're ashamed of, but, by the time they get into their middle age to later years, like they really see the error of their ways, they've learned, they're growing. That's what life is about, and I feel bad for people who have that snuffed out from, accidental death or disease, something like that, when they're so young. And I was always happy to see that they would have a chance to come back right away. They wouldn't have to wait, and they would have that opportunity to, start again and live their life and have that opportunity to be more enlightened when they go on the other side, because it's all about Source wants to learn, wants to know more. And it's so easy on the other side. How can we learn except if we're in hardship? So, I'm happy to say that even the no talents, yes, in the end, they are one of us. We are all one. It's just that this is just roles that we play. And how much would it suck to be somebody who, struggled like everyone else here on this side in this realm. And then just when you get your points at the other end, and it's like such disappointment, oh yeah, I'm going to come back again, but I'm going to wait in line. That's what I mean. Like you back in the line, right?
It's like not getting Park Place or Boardwalk on Monopoly, right? You're like, oh crap, I'm going to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just, I think that it's appropriate for people who've been significantly wronged by other people who went to their grave being assholes. It's like, you know what? They really paid a price for that, a price that you're not going to pay because you know better. And when you know better, you do better. And it's all about how we treat one another. like when it comes right down to it. And I mean, I don't want to be all preachy, and I'm not like a super religious person or anything, because there's no real one religion that fits my knowings. They all fall short of that. So, but I respect people, whatever religion they practice. And I feel that there's certain factors that kind of go across the board where we're all the same, like with what we believe. And I think that's important to understand that when we pass over to the other side, part of the, being, becoming clean again is seeing your end of life review.
Okay.
And you suffer more if you have a bad one, right? So just if you've done bad stuff, just make sure that you have learned from it and you change your ways. And, it's all about how you treat other people.
Yeah. Yeah, I always like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. They summed it up pretty good. Be excellent to each other. Simple as that.
Yeah.
William Penn has a great flood question here. Did the Anunnaki try to drown the humans in a particular region, or was it worldwide? So, Sam, I guess this relates to the Great Flood, and what caused it and why?
Well, that is true.
Okay.
They did. That story is true. And I find that most of that stuff is a total and complete other BS made up by a bunch of humans who wanted to suck in a bunch of other humans who have that nature of, they're searching, right? And they take advantage of these people who are just, some people are like, oh, I can't believe that. Oh, it was so dumb. And I was like, listen, you were just searching. It's okay. Because sometimes you believe things that aren't true for a little while, and then some other things drop, and then you're like, oh, nope, that's not it. And then you were smart enough just to move along and, keep looking. So, the thing with the Anunnaki, I can't say 100% for sure, but the impression I got was, yes, that one was one of the true stories. And they did try to, they were not very good aliens. Like they were very much a very selfish group, right?
Okay.
Which doesn't represent all of the aliens, all of the other ones out there. So like others are just scientists. They're keeping an eye on us. They only wish us well, so it's not all like terrible bad, just like people. The different societies of aliens are different, but these guys, they just used us. They just dickered with the DNA of the hominids, made mankind. But then, I believe that source found a way to make good from bad by, using the humans as the hosts for the light beings that we are. And so it's like they were bad, but from bad, good was made. And then when they tried to drown us, well, we're not that easy, right? So
many questions now. When do we start getting souls? But can you see how they actually caused the flood? Do you get any visions of how they did that? Was it regional or?
Well, it was regional because that's where the people were. They were all pretty much kept in a region as far as they knew, right? I mean, other people could have escaped and they wouldn't have known about it. Seriously, it's not like they put beacons on people, right? I mean, it wasn't that they couldn't have, it was just like they didn't care. They were just flying by the seat of their pants. Okay, we need gold. We need some minerals. This planet has it. Oh, okay, well, those things are too stupid to work with. Let's get some scientific changes going on here to serve our needs. And oh, we're done with them. Oh, well, this is kind of against the rules. Let's just cover over what we did. We created a whole society. I know it would be a joke to people almost that it's like, yeah, they were just trying to cover up like what they did. But, again, from bad came good, and it became, it became a place for source to decide that, oh, here's an opportunity to learn and grow as a supreme being. I mean, how often does that happen?
Our next question comes from kiwimark. Hi, Sam and Rudy. While we are talking about animals, do they all see spirits? Do they all see spirits that grow out of it similar? Okay, so he's asking, do animals see spirits the same way that children do, but then grow out of it? Is it to do with their level of vibrations? Cheers.
Well, I think that animals are very similar to people, where some may see spirits and others may not. So they're not necessarily going to see spirits because they're a cat, but they may see spirits if they're a cat that has mediumistic abilities where the visual part is still included, which is, you know, for a lot of us, a lot of people would assume that I see things all the time, but I do not. And it's by choice. I've asked that not happen to me because this other stuff, that's enough as it is.
I'll write down TV show idea, The Cat Medium. That will be huge.
Yeah.
See you later, suckers. I'm going to go produce a TV show. I know that's interesting. Yeah. So some can see, some don't. Our next one, let's see. Hide behind names. That is still showing on my thing here. Next one from Richard Carlson. When a person passes away, does time freeze? So time doesn't exist for them while time is still going on normal for us. Thank you.
Right. That would be that's the easiest answer. It's very difficult to, when I use all of these analogies, I'm really just trying to use like another human analogy for something that there's not always a human answer for. Because again, I say, oh, I see this. And the only time I actually see something is when I say, oh, I'm seeing a picture of, like the animation I was telling you about. Like I am actually seeing it. But when it comes to what I've been told about when a person passes away, they have the understanding of time, but more like what time is for us. It's different for them. And that's probably one of the most difficult things that I have to try to explain to people. I don't think I've been able to find the right words for it, and probably why people are a little bit more forgiving, where I'm like, oops, sorry, I was off by a year, right? Well, like we thought for sure 2020, you know, Bitcoin was going to hit 20,000 by December of 2020, but it was actually December of 2019. We were so sure, but it was actually December of 2020. And then 2021, everything went really chaotic.
What comes to mind when you said that was, it's almost like if you were to be able to watch a movie, or like if you're editing a video, if anyone's ever, played with a video and the video editor, being in the video, having it filmed versus stepping out and being able to see the whole timeline and zoom in on one particular place. That's probably the closest I can think of. So
yeah, that's actually a good comparison.
Is there such a thing as walk-in, where a soul agrees to share one body at a certain time? And I remember this because the question was, someone had a similar question about walk-ins. Like, can somebody, their soul be in a body, and then can it leave and another soul come in and replace it? And Sam, that was another one where you were the no lady and said absolutely not on that one.
No. As a medium, though, you can have somebody inhabit your body, and then it is easier to communicate with them. It's what a lot of people call channeling. And I only did it once, and then I was kind of like, I don't think I'm supposed to do that.
All right. Well, thanks for that question, Wayne. And then our last question of the evening comes from Angel B. I have read in USA, 51% of women aged 30 or younger do not have children. At this rate, will it collapse the population? Many old people and not enough young people for society to function. Will science, be it extending people's lives or AI, fix the issue?
So, Angel B, isn't that interesting you asked that question? I've been all about the demographics the last 2 weeks when I was looking at the financials of the world, and because I'm trying to pull as much information as I can all the time in my free time. That's what I listen to. And I talked about Peter Zehan because he talks about the not only the economics, but the demographics is a really good predictor. And one of the great things that the US has is lots of immigration. Like Canada. Canada has lots of immigration as well. And Mexico has just overall a younger population and a higher number of women who have multiple children, Okay. So the average would probably be just over 2. I think Mexico's still at replacement right now. But, you know, this is not a bad thing. And that's why I don't think the population of the planet will ever see double digits in the billions. It'll kind of crest and then it will recede. And it doesn't help that with the pollution, we're creating all of these problems with fertility as well. So that's another reason. It's not just women putting it off. It's like a lot of couples do have problems conceiving, and not only are they waiting till they're older to have children, which I mean, that's just a given that when you wait till you're older, but you know, with pollution, that's affecting things as well. So it's going to be a different world for sure, but it's nothing to be afraid of. And yes, people will be living older and they will be healthier. We're going to find a lot of cures and treatments that currently don't exist that will help people have, you know, more active and involved old age, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. As you said before, science will save us.
Yes. Science will save us. That's the good news.
All right. Well, great show tonight, Sam. Thanks so much for all your insight on everything. And we will look forward to tomorrow's meetup with Moo and hear what's happening with cryptos.
Thanks again for hanging out just in time.
Bye.
Bye for now.